Hello and welcome to this quick video for TSA in which we're going to take a quick look at The Art of Alien Isolation. This is from Titan Books. It costs £30 or $40. Shop around, you might be able to get it a bit cheaper, but we're actually going to be giving a few copies of this away as well, so keep your eyes on the sixthaxis.com and we will let you know how you might be able to win one. This book, the game came out a few weeks ago and there were a couple of the reviews that weren't particularly positive. A lot of positive ones too, and I think its Metacritic average is fairly positive. But what they seemed to not like about the game was the stealth mechanics, maybe the fact that it dragged on a little bit. There was a little bit of a pacing issue towards the end. But what everybody agreed on was that the art was absolutely fantastic and they really nailed the atmosphere. Obviously one or two sort of cliched things like the graffiti on the wall from somebody running in terror from an alien and they take 5 minutes to stop and scroll something on the wall. Also things like backlit ventilation fans and just little tricks like that help the lighting work. What this book has is an awful lot of concept stuff that didn't actually make it into the game. Things like the character models, and there's some 3D renders and stuff, a lot of concept artwork in here. That's very interesting for anybody that really likes the game, but also interesting for anybody that likes the movies, because I think the game, it really nailed the atmosphere of the movies very well. So in just a minute I'm going to bring the camera over, we'll look down, we'll flick through a little bit. There might be the odd little bit in this book which you maybe haven't got to in the game yet, so if you haven't finished the game or if you're very sensitive to spoilers, there are a couple of sort of concepts in here for maybe things that don't happen until later in the game. You might want to avoid that, come back and watch the video later. But as I say, the game's been out a couple of weeks, so we probably be okay for anybody that's really sensitive to spoilers for now. So let's bring the camera over, we'll point it straight down and we'll have a quick look at what's inside the book. Okay, so here we are now in my kitchen. We'll take the dust cover off just to make things nice and simple. There's a nice chalk drawn alien inside. We'll get that out of the way. So this is The Art of Alien Isolation. We'll start sort of towards the beginning. Obviously I don't want to maybe show too much because there are some mild spoilers in here, and a lot of it you will want to see for yourself as well. But we can see things like, that's obviously the key art from the game, should be familiar to anybody. Things like these were initial sketches for Amanda. Now obviously this very Portal looking. This one where she's wearing a spacesuit but obviously didn't have time for underwear. I think they got her character design really quite well done. Some of this stuff is a little bit absurd but very sort of gamey, you can see where they're coming from. So yeah, and we have that, obviously this sort of thing with her in her underwear is very sort of iconic of the first Alien film. There was scenes towards the end where they did that with her mother, Ellen Ripley. And then you can see there are sort of, it shows you how they render things and how they do the surface of her skin and things, which some quite creepy pictures involved. That's all sort of fairly standard for a video game stuff. Obviously this is like DLC stuff or pre-order content, I think, where they modelled the original cast. Later on in the book, you can see, obviously still going through that, but you can see, I think this stuff where they show you scenes from the original film, that was 1979. You can see they've taken their design cues from that film, quite obviously. I think they got it really, really well. I think they did it really well. Because it looks old and it looks used, but at the same time, it's obviously sci-fi and it has that sort of strange aesthetic all the way through, which is a really cool thing to see. Obviously the androids, the synthetics that are in the game. But yeah, this is all just sort of character models and stuff like that. Then there's sections on the weapons and equipment. Obviously they, again, they stuck fairly closely to that original Alien stuff with the flamethrower and the motion tracker and all that sort of thing. But I think the idea in the game was to kind of not have anything out of place. So this space station, you know, it wouldn't have a lot of like high impact weaponry. Why would a space station have rocket launchers lying around? But you might be able to mackle together like a flamethrower or something. There might be a revolver. They've got security teams there. Obviously the shotguns come in with the other security teams that come in. So yeah, I think they sort of tried to keep it as realistic as possible with a lot of the designs for not just the scenery and not just the sort of costumes and the character models, but also the weapons. And then of course later on we see, well, this is chapter 3 is a section about space and the sort of outsides of the spaceships and stuff. They do go into some detail about the interior of the spaceships, and there's a couple of, see if I can find them here. There's a couple of like almost like blueprint, like layout maps, there we go, of the inside of the ship. So this is actually the Nostromo, which again was part of I think the pre-order content or some sort of DLC that they'll be doing. But it sort of lays out where the particular rooms are in the ship itself, which is really nice. It gives you that, even if you're not a big fan of the game, even if you just love the movies and love the aesthetic of the actual subject matter itself. I think it's really nice to see that kind of thing. It sort of gives you your bearings. You can go back and watch the movies and you sort of can get a placement for where you are on the ship within the film, which is quite nice. Yeah, we'll skip ahead a little bit. That's the Torrens, obviously that's the ship that you arrive on. And then the station itself, which is kind of almost a character in itself within the game. And obviously, like as I mentioned earlier, they do lean on a few sort of cliched things. The backlit vents, I don't know why every survival horror film setting is always built with backlit ventilation shafts. But I think they generally speaking, this sort of stuff is kind of fascinating, and the detail that they have to go into, even in these sort of early visualizations of it, the sort of 3D renders that they went into, they're really very intricate, and I think that kind of pays off. If this had featured in the game and just been like a smooth-sided model, it doesn't look realistic. It doesn't look like it's evolved from the space stations that we're building at the moment. So yeah, I think sort of the attention to detail they've obviously gone into is very telling. That they obviously had a passion about what they were doing. And again, you can see like further on through the game, the way the concept art has sort of almost inspired the way they did the lighting in the game as well. So it's not just a case of, well, this is like a reference drawing, this is what the setting should look like. It's kind of from the very first stages, it's already setting an atmosphere. And that's kind of interesting too. So obviously I don't want to go into too much detail. I want to give you a chance to read the book for yourselves and look through it. There's not a lot of text in it. It is mostly art stuff, which is probably fitting for a book called The Art of Alien Isolation. Some of these kind of books do tend to have a few sort of paragraphs here and there of text that sort of dives a little bit deeper. This one doesn't have a lot. It has the odd sort of introduction to chapters and stuff, but it doesn't have a lot of that sort of stuff. But I think that's fine. I certainly, like, sometimes that text does teach you a little bit more about the game, but I think with this subject matter, we already know so much about it that it's really more interesting to see how they have adapted the look and the feel of the films, and how they've gone through that sort of with a fine-tooth comb and converted it into something that works in a game. Some of the sort of set decoration stuff, very, very interesting the way they approach that as well. I think I've read a few things around the internet that people have done about the art behind it. Some of the design of the posters, this is something that I'm sort of fairly interested in anyway, but some of the design of the posters is really, really smart, because they have almost gone for a kind of maybe a 1960s informational poster type thing, or like work safety stuff that you would see quite a lot. But then a lot of it is sort of fairly modern as well, and that's again quite clever because it's obviously coming from an aesthetic that was invented in 1979 but is meant to be in the future. And then of course the alien itself. Now the alien was kind of designed for them, but obviously they have to make that work within the game, so they have to make sure that they've got the proportions right and the animation right, to be faithful to Geiger's original concept and also what that kind of evolved into in the film itself. Personally, I think some of the animations of the alien in the game itself were a little bit sort of almost comical. Maybe not quite as terrifying just to see it loping around corridors, but obviously when it does catch you, that's the scary point and that's the bit that works. But but I think some of the animation and some of the way that they fitted the alien into the concept of the ship itself, the idea of it was scarier than the actual vision of it, I think. But again, it was very well integrated from what we know of the alien into the game, which is quite nice. I think that's basically all we want to look at without going too much into spoilers and things. But obviously, yeah, it's like they make full use of the page in a lot of areas. You do have a lot of like these little panels and stuff, but there are some like real standout art pages that show the whole thing off. Which is really okay, so hopefully that gives you a good idea of what the Art of Alien Isolation is about. If you do want to win one of those, there will be a competition going up on the sixthaxis.com in the next day or two. We'll let you know how you can win one. We've got, I think, 3 copies to give away. So yeah, hopefully that was informative and you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.